Right, good evening. How are you doing today? Please let me know how you're doing. It's an absolutely great time to be here with you. Thank you for choosing us to inform you of what's happening across your world. My name is Victor Moyakane, and this is TV47 Daily Report from the home of Untold Stories. And I'm doing it tonight with the great Catherine Simaloy on the other side. Now, as you're aware, the UNIA conference, UNIA 6, is happening. It's ending tomorrow, matter of fact. And just before this news bulletin, we had an amazing interview, a joint collaboration between TV47 and CGTN, and who are our partners. And we were able to bring you that broadcast live and direct, an interview done by one of the CGTN presenters, as well as our very own George Maringa. It was a conversation around your world and mine, a conversation about finding a balance, finding a way to heal the planet, finding harmony between humanity and nature. That's a conversation that the Daily Insight, which is our show on Thursday, is all about. We're all about finding insight on finding ways to deal with climate change, among other things. So in the course of this news bulletin, we will be talking about some of the highlights from that conversation. And I hope you were watching. I hope my producers will be able to play back just a short part of that interview a little bit later on. But first and foremost, it's the highlights. Over 15,000 legal professionals nationwide participate in the election of a new president for the Law Society of Kenya and a representative to the Judicial Service Commission.
It is an indication that the Law Society of Kenya is now at the center of the democratic development of this country.
Azimio leader Raila Odinga escalates his endorsement campaign en route to Addis 2025. Raila adding that he has the full support from the East Africa community.
Sasa bwana Salva Kiir amekubali. Sasa hii bara hii yote Afrika Mashariki yote nataka kufyaka.
Tonight, in our special feature, we spotlight Kenya's steps in reducing plastic bag usage as Kenya hosts the 6th United Nations Environment Assembly.
We have plastic in our bodies. This impacts our health. So therefore, we need to find the solutions. And the solutions are entirely...
As Kenya hosts the 6th United Nations Environment Assembly, we showcase a slum located in the heart of Kiambu County where 90% of the makeshift houses utilize polythene sheets as roofing material. Right, as I said, that is just a snippet of what we have in store for you this evening. Here's how you can take part in this conversation. I want to hear from you. Talk to us, give us your views and reviews on the news. The SMS line is at the bottom of your screen right now. There's also a WhatsApp number that should be on there, and we should be able to receive that right here, and I'll be able to engage with you on that. Let us know what you think about the stories that we're going to air. And with that, shall we begin? Now, the tallying process to the election of the next president of the Kenya Law Society is currently ongoing at the Supreme Court before the final announcement of results takes place at the Kenya Law Society headquarters in Lavington. Our reporter Paul Kirobi has been following up on this news and we'll link up with him right now. Paul, good evening. How are you and what's happening where you are?
All right, very good evening to you, Victor Moyakane. Of course, I'm coming live to you outside the Supreme Court building right now. As we speak, the tallying process to elect the next president of the Law Society of Kenya, LSK, is currently going on. Of course, the tallying process is being done right here at the Supreme Court building just behind me. As you can see, these are just voters who've been camping here since very early in the morning, and the voting process that started at around 8 a.m. Was being conducted in different parts of the country. But to be specific, right here in the capital city of Nairobi, which has more voters of almost 12,000 voters who had actually registered to elect the next president for the Law Society of Kenya. We understand that almost 15,000 people, 700 had registered as voters, of course, to exercise their democratic right as per the Constitution of the the Law Society of Kenya to elect the next president for the Law Society of Kenya. We understand the race had attracted at least 5 candidates, including Peter Wanyama, Caroline Kamende, Faith Odhiambo. Faith Odhiambo is currently the Vice President of the Law Society of Kenya. And we also have Harriet Mboche and Kip Koech Bernard Ngetich. But right now, as you speak, the tallying process is still going on at the Supreme Court. But where the final results will be announced is at the headquarters of the Law Society of Kenya along the Gitanga Road in Lavington. That is where the main venue is going to take place at around, because right now is around 9, of course, maybe by around 12 or 11:30 there. Kenyans will know the next president of the Law Society of Kenya. But earlier on in the preliminary results, we had seen Faith Odhiambo leading. We understand he has influence in the Law Society of Kenya because currently he's holding the position of the Vice President, Law Society of Kenya. And the next president who will be elected to head the Law Society of Kenya is going to be the 51st president of the council. Of course, he will be succeeding the incumbent president, Eric Theory. So, but right now we can match on who is ahead because the tallying process is still going on. But earlier on we had visited that particular area, Gitanga Road, the headquarters of the Law Society of Kenya, and the security is quite very tight. It's pomp and color. This simply means that actually it's going to be a glamorous night, let me say. But of course we'll keep on updating what is going to happen tonight, and of course inform them more on our subsequent bulletin. Back to you in studio, Victor Muyakane.
All right. Thank you so much. That was Paul Kirobi, aka The Brand, coming to you live from the Supreme Court of Kenya. He will be following up on that story, and we shall bring you up to speed on the results of that particular election. Keep in touch with us on our social media platforms on X or Twitter and others. We shall be updating you on what happens over there. In other news, the burial of the 2 victims of banditry attacks in Baringo County recently took place under very tight security. This is after bandits blocked the roads leading to the burial grounds. The 2 had been killed in separate incidents, with one of the victims being Thomas Kibet, a head teacher who was killed while on his way to visit his child at Kipcherere Secondary School. The bandits made away with an unknown number of livestock this morning as they disrupted the burial plans.
What is happening in Baringo can be equated to what is happening with Boko Haram and Al-Shabaab. It is terrorism.
As mourners gather at Yate and Kagir areas of Saimosoi ward to witness the burial of 2 victims of banditry attacks, worry is written all over their faces. The burial ceremonies had faced hitches in the early morning as bandits blocked the roads in Sibilo area and even made away with hundreds of livestock.
Today we are mourning the hero whom you promised in 2015 here that you are going to give peace. He has died now.
Leaders and locals attending the burial were angered, some saying that they are ready to help intensify the war against banditry.
Tumekubaliana kwamba safari hii amani lazima likuje. Na tumekubalia kwamba mkora yeyote kama inapatikana wapi kwa Baringo. Vitu ni 3 na ya 3 ndio tumeamua.
They have now urged the multi-agency teams are working to eradicate banditry to take the matter more seriously. Defense CS Eden Duale also being tasked with intervening on the issue.
We know the security apparatus are aware. We know they are planning themselves. But we want to urge them that the earlier the better, because the situation is getting worse. It is deteriorating every day. People are being affected. Teachers are being killed. Professionals are being targeted in a scare to make people move out of this place.
Earlier today, Interior CS Kithure Kindiki met with Baringo leaders in his Harambee office and presented them with a raft of measures which they say have been put in place to restore normalcy. Vera Alberta, TV47.
Now, Embakkasi explosion survivors will have to wait a little bit longer to receive compensation from the government, as the disbursement of the fund now lies in the office of the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua. Speaking when he appeared before both the National and Senate Energy Committees. Energy Cabinet Secretary Davis Chirchir told MPs who sought clarity on the matter that the National Disaster Committee is following up on the matter, adding that the energy docket has no budget to handle such concerns.
Energy CS Davis Chirchir appearing before Parliament's Energy Committee to shed light on the Embakkasi gas explosion, which left scores of people dead, some injured, and hundreds homeless.
Asked for. Maybe you can answer to that.
Legislators seeking to know the fate of the survivors and the kin of those who lost their lives in the Embakkasi gas explosion, saying victims have been neglected since the tragedy, even after promises of support from the government.
Facility, there is nothing else to learn from. There is no crime committed by the people who either died or were injured during the process. It is already known that they are victims of those circumstances. And there is no other investigations to be done to conclude that they were unfairly injured or they unfairly died.
It's easy to make sure that it doesn't operate. Who's the person that's supposed to do issue the licenses? So you might license somebody to do business at point B, but they know that the lucrative point to do business is point A. They will go and apply and get the license at point.
The Energy CS, however, told MPs that the National Disaster Committee is following up on the matter, saying the energy docket has no budget to handle such concerns and that it will need more time to follow up on the matter before presenting any report before legislators.
The people who died, many of them have already been buried. If it is incurring hospital bills, many of them have already incurred those hospital bills. People lost homes, they've been sleeping outside. Only for you to tell them that there's a procedure to look for the deputy president, and yet he's the one who went to the ground to tell them that this support is there. Why is it different for the people of Nairobi? Why can't the ministry go to the people the way that it has done in other areas?
Done as government is to put this under the National Disaster Committee, where there's a budget. When the deputy president visited the site, he did announce some compensation under that budget line of the national disaster, which is managed in his office. We have got funding and we work with donor funds to address issues of floods, to address issues of this kind of accidents. And Chair, I think that needs to be prosecuted because it will be very difficult for every ministry to have a line budget on compensation on disaster.
He further revealed that 49 LPG plants whose licenses were revoked were from Nairobi and Kiambu counties, as majority of them were within residential areas. The recent efforts by EPRA came amidst push by legislators on laxity by the regulator to enforce safeguards to deter recurrence of Embakkasi explosion incident that claimed 7 lives.
What is this licensing gap between the requirements of EPRA and the parameters that are applied by NEMA that would allow you to deny a license, and yet NEMA would issue a license to the same premises? Is it that the people at NEMA cannot see the residential houses, or that is not an issue for them?
Even as Ministry of Energy and EPRA continue to crack its whip against the illegal gas operators in the country, this begs the question why it took too long before they acted. Elizabeth Motuko, TV47 Palm Biddings, Nairobi.
Kisii County Deputy Governor Robert Monda has been impeached by members of the County Assembly. 53 representatives passed the motion to impeach him, while 15 ward representatives opposed the motion at the County Assembly. Take a look.
The fate of Kisii County Deputy Governor Robert Monda seems to have been sealed as a majority of members of the County Assembly voted to impeach him. The second in command is accused of allegedly promoting corruption in the county.
I now declare that the Deputy Governor of Kisii County Government, His Excellency Honorable Dr. Robert Monda, has been removed from office by the Kisii County Assembly by way of impeachment.
Similarly, it is alleged that he gave a bribe of 100,000 Kenya shillings to the managing director of Kisii Water and Sewerage Company so that the manager would help his relative to get a job as a sales manager of the water company.
I had a challenge to either stand with this young man by the name Dennis Mukaya, a jobless youth who had to sell down a few of the things that he had, with the hope of securing a job which he had been promised by the Deputy Governor Robert Monda, of a commercial manager, whereby he had assured the family of Dennis that he will influence the process so that at the end of the day, one Dennis Mukaya gets the job.
The third charge that was presented queried whether he abused county enforcement officers by making them laborers at his farm. Following Dr. Monda's dismissal from the office, the Speaker of the Kisii County Assembly, Dr. Philip Nyanumba, will now have to inform the Speaker of the Senate about the decision made by the ward representatives.
Really surprised. It would seem like what the voting pattern that eventually occurred after arguments, discussions, presentations for over 7 hours ended up being what exactly would seem to have been the likely event that would have happened within the first 10 minutes of the process. Being that it would seem everybody came with a fixed mind, especially on the other side.
And if the senators are satisfied with the decision of the ward representatives, then Dr. Monda will lose his seat. But if the Senate serves him, he will return back to the office. Nelson Mwereza, TV47.
In other news, 3 children have perished and their mother is nursing serious injuries after their house caught fire in the wee hours of last night in Sigalagala village of Ikolomani sub-county in Kakamega County. And as our reporter Violet Auma reports, the children are alleged to have died from suffocation.
Last night, a family in Sigalagala faced a huge loss as their 3 children perished in a devastating fire. Preliminary reports suggest that 3 children aged 7, 9 and 19 were studying at home with a candle due to a power surge when the fire erupted.
Tukasikia masauti kusema saidie. Tukaamka tukakuja tukapata moto inawaka kwa jirani na moshi inapitia kwa hiyo ventilation. Na tukajaribu sasa kubomoa dirisha ndio tuweze kuzima huo moto. Tulipojaribu kufungua, kwa sababu walikuwa wamejifungia ndani, tulipata kwamba kafuli alikuwa amefungia mlango na chini na kafuli. Askari walikuja akatusaidia tukawapeleka Kakamega General.
The children tragically succumbed to suffocation after their mattress caught fire. Meanwhile, their mother, who is critically injured, is currently receiving treatment at Kakamega Referral Hospital.
Ingia nikapata mama bado anapumua kidogo. Anapumua lakini kwa ile nguvu ana struggle kupumua. Huyu msichana mwingine mdogo alikuwa amejifunika hadi na blanketi kwa kichwa.
Watu wenye wanatumia candle, saa ile umemaliza kutumia isime ulale kama umesima. Mara nyingi huwa inasababisha mambo kama haya.
Ikolomani Deputy County Commissioner Geoffrey Mayama said preliminary investigations point to a possible fire started by a candle.
Lakini kwa bahati mbaya wale watoto wakawa wamesemekana wameaga, maybe kwa kisha taa hizi zetu za kawaida ama hata jiko tunalotumia kwa mapishi, tuone kwamba tumezima mioto kabla ya sisi kuenda kwa malazi.
The bodies of the 3 have been taken to Kakamega Referral Hospital mortuary awaiting post-mortem. Reporting for TV47, I'm Violet Auma.
Now, Somalia's former Foreign Affairs Minister, Fawzia Adam, has declared her candidature for the African Union Commission chairmanship, becoming the 2nd woman to express interest in the seat. Fawzia Adam, who is said to have her country's blessing, will face off with Azimio leader Raila Odinga, who has already intensified his bid for the seat, saying that he's received the endorsement of 7 countries so far. And as Apollo Kamau reports, Fawzia Adams' entry into the race sets the stage for a competitive duel between Kenya and Somalia.
Azimio coalition leader Raila Odinga will now be forced to engage a high gear after Somalia's first female and former Foreign Affairs Minister Fawzia Adam declared her candidature for the African Union Commission chairmanship post, setting the stage for Kenya-Somalia duel, where regional politics will come into play on who has the final say. Odinga, who has already hit the ground running, says he has the support of 7 countries, the latest being Tanzania, DRC Congo, and South Africa.
Museveni amesema yeye mwenyewe ndiye atapropose mimi. Sawa sawa? Sasa mimi wiki ijayo hii mimi naenda kuona na Kagame. Kagame vile vile nataka aingie ndani. Mama Suluhu tayari amesema ako tayari atanipiga mimi kura. Sasa bwana Salva Kiir amekubali. Sasa hii bara hii yote Afrika Mashariki yote nataka kufyaka.
Baba, unapoondoka ukienda AU tunakuombea. Tafadhali usituache. Sisi tutasimama kama askari wako na tutafanya kazi kadri na katiba.
You will be the first Kenyan to be sitting on that seat. And Kenyans are Africans, and Kenyans deserve that seat, but you deserve it as the first Kenyan to sit on that seat.
During a development tour in Kisii County, Odinga said he will be heading to Rwanda next week to meet President Paul Kagame and secure his vote. The entry of the veteran diplomat will once again test Kenya-Somalia ties, which have been frosty in the past over the maritime border dispute in the Indian Ocean. Kenya's influence as an anchor state in the region will no doubt come into play, with charter diplomacy expected to come into full force to influence not just the region, but the continent ahead of next year's vote.
Alafu naenda kule kusini, juzi nimekuwa na ule na Ramaphosa amesema ndio. Sawa? Shekedi amesema ndio. Sawa? Sasa mimi naona yule ambaye atatoka tutamanyana naye tu kwa kiwanja. Akiniangusha sawa. Sawa. Mnataka niendelee? Baba endelee siendelee?
Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi on Tuesday met former Sports and Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohamed, who lost to the current AUC Chair Musa Faki of Chad, where the agenda centered on Kenya's candidacy. Under the AUC rotational rules, East Africa, which is expected to produce the current chair, can field as many candidates as possible. Apul Kamau, TV47.
Now back home, the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Pharmacists and Dentists Union today held a protest against an issue of medical interns not being posted, with some having to wait as long as 22 months for their internship. The protest turned violent, and now the KMPDU has urged all doctors to assemble in Nairobi next week and wear a red armband as a gesture of solidarity with Secretary General Davji Atela, who is currently hospitalized after an alleged shooting by the police. Kisii Emery with the details.
One moment, a peaceful demonstration. The next, chaos. The Secretary General of the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union, Dr. Davji Atela, was put in a Good Samaritan's car and rushed to a nearby hospital.
A policeman, and we know him, the witnesses were there, but with the OCS or the OCPD, Capitol Hill Police. He had earlier on threatened the SG that he was going to ensure he removes him from the crowd as the leader. So as we were walking down, he took a gun, aimed at the SG, and shot at him.
The medics had marched from the KMA auditorium to the Ministry of Health offices to protest about interns not being posted, despite many of them completing their course more than 8 months ago.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever.
We have colleagues here who've waited for close to 22 months. Yes. People who traveled and studied abroad, they came back to this country, Kenyans, seeking education in China, in Sudan. They've waited for 22 months to get posted, which is absurd. You can imagine sitting at home for close to 2 years. I mean, the effect on your mental health, the turmoil, the depression. I mean, and even just the pure loss of faith in whether this government truly cares for young people.
After deliberations with the Ministry of Health, the medical interns decided to march to the National Treasury but were stopped by police officers who hurled tear gas canisters at the interns.
We overemphasize how important it is for us to get posted immediately because there is a deficit. The public are going to feel it. The public are already feeling it as it is now. And what you want is immediate posting. What you want is to serve our mothers, our fathers, our sisters and brothers in the hospitals of this country. And I don't think that's anything that anyone should be punished or even castigated for.
Now, according to the KMPDU, 25 people were injured and are recovering at various hospitals in the city.
Interns have been injured. Some have gone to Kenyatta Casualty Hospital. Some have gone home to self-medicate. Some we don't know where they have disappeared to after getting hurt because it was their first time undergoing a second of violence.
The KMPDU now says that doctors around the country will strike in solidarity with the medical interns in a bid to get them their internships. 6 years studying to be a doctor, but some of these interns have had to wait 8 to 22 months so as to be posted. What they now want is the Ministry of Health to intervene so that they can be posted and serve their country. Kisii Emory reporting for TV47 at Afya House, Nairobi.
And still on matters health, the Department of Nutrition and Dietetics at the Ministry of Health has now revealed that the level of obesity has been on the rise. This follows a steady rise from 28% in 2003 to 45% in 2022. And as Elizabeth Atieno reports, this rise has been attributed to poor diet and poor dietary habits, including overconsumption of junk food.
More than 40% of women aged 20 to 49 in Kenya are obese. A 2022 report by the Department of Nutrition and Dietetics in Kenya has revealed that the counties of Kirinyaga, Nyeri, Murang'a, Nairobi, Nyandarua and Kiambu are leading in obesity. This has been attributed to poor dietary habits and the consumption of unhealthy meals.
Almost 40 counties, the overweight obesity burden is above 25%, but Kirinyaga takes the lead.
The World Health Organization has estimated that by 2035, more than half of the world's population, or 4 billion people, will be obese if significant action is not taken to address the looming crisis.
We also cannot forget the increasing burden of obesity, plus its resultant non-communicable diseases such as diabetes and hypertension.
Rates of obesity continue to grow among children aged 5 to 19, especially those from low-income countries. The World Health Organization projects that the rate of childhood obesity could more than double to 208 million boys and 175 million girls by 2035.
Really, I would say food processing is what Kenya needs, and this is what will drive us to food and nutrition security.
According to studies, Kenya is facing a triple burden of malnutrition, that is undernutrition, obesity and micronutrient deficiency.
But it depicts the country as really burdened by micronutrient deficiencies, and mostly looking at vitamin A, iron and iodine. And for your information, as per that survey of 2011, hoping things have improved, we had a zinc deficiency standing at 70%.
Globally, 45% of child deaths are associated with undernutrition. In 2014 alone, Kenya lost a total of 373 billion Kenya shillings due to undernutrition, this being enough proof of the economic impact that malnutrition has on the country's growth and productivity.
Over 400 public health officers have been trained and accredited for aflatoxin management. In response to climate change, WFP also supports the adoption of biofortified foods in arid counties, facilitating dietary diversification.
This report was revealed by the Department of Nutrition and Dietetics at the Ministry of Health during the 3rd National Food Fortification Summit in Nairobi, where fortification, supplementation and deworming were cited as the key public health measures in curbing malnutrition in the country.
So basically, we've done so much around that space, and we continue looking at how can counties be capacity built, including the public health officers who are now doing a lot more work to heighten surveillance around fortification.
Kenya is now celebrating a decade of food fortification. Food fortification is the deliberate practice of adding vitamins and minerals to commonly consumed foods to increase their nutritional value.
The Foods, Drugs and Chemical Substances Act of 2012 requires all sorts of human consumption, packaged maize flour, wheat flour, fats and oils to be fortified with specific vitamins and minerals so as to prevent micronutrient deficiencies. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, a few minutes ago, the Tanzanian President, Mama Samia Suluhu, announced the death of the former president of Tanzania, Ali Hassan Mwinyi. Mr. Mwinyi, or the late Mwinyi, was the second president of the United Republic of Tanzania. He came just after former President Julius Nyerere and just before former President Benjamin Mkapa. He passed away at the age of 98. This is a developing story, and this is something we should be able to give you a little bit more on a little bit later. But for now, once again, Tanzania is in mourning after losing their second president, that is Ali Hassan Mwinyi, who died this evening. And he served as Tanzania's president from the year 1985 to 1995 as their second president. Now, our hearts and minds are with our Tanzanian brothers and sisters at this time of loss. And it is on that note that we wish to take a short break in honor of Tanzania, and we should be right back with more.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na Nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus niko niwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue. Mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you know, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking.
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
To finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Now, welcome back. If you're joining us right now, this is TV47 Daily Report with me, Victor Muyakane, and Catherine Simaloy on sign language. I asked you to let me know where you're watching us from and your opinion on the news that we've aired so far. Still waiting for your feedback. 22047 is the SMS line. Our WhatsApp line is open. I'd like to ask my producer to just put the WhatsApp number on the bottom bit of the screen. Let me know what you think. I will sample it live and direct from here. In other news, over 100 graduates living with disabilities from the National Industrial Training Authority were graduated today at a ceremony at the Nairobi campus. Various stakeholders in the education sector congratulated the graduates, saying that they made it, even though they are able differently, or rather were facing massive obstacles. The happy graduates have been asked to use their skills that they gathered to earn a living and better their lives. They may have been told, or rather they have been told, that the government is working to ensure that measures are put in place to give them a conducive working environment based on their skills.
That you are enabled differently does not hinder you to achieve what you can. We've seen great sportsmen, we've seen great scientists, we've seen people who are differently enabled performing wondrous acts.
The government has therefore put in place measures to align education and training to the demands of the labor market. We are trying to ensure that education and training is talking to the industry.
The importance of inclusivity and how to interact with people, with different people with disabilities. We supported each other, learned from one another, and celebrated our unique strengths and abilities. One of the most incredible things we accomplished together was learning sign language. We took our time to understand the challenges faced by our friends with hearing impairments, and we embraced the opportunity to communicate with them.
Right. Now, Kenya is hosting the 6th United Nations Environment Assembly, that is UNEA 6. This is the world's top decision-making body on the environment. It brings together more than 70 ministers and 3,000 delegates. In these sessions of the week-long assembly, which ends tomorrow, a follow-up of the UNEA 5th sessions, resolutions are expected, such as the agreement of a phase-down in the production and use of plastic by at least 75% by 2040. Little progress has been made on this in the host nation, here in Kenya, and evidently so as highlighted in this report that is coming. Case in point, a slum at the heart of Kiambu County with about 90% of the tenants, or rather the shacks, put up with polythene paper serving as the roof. This was done by our very own, proudly, William Moige. Have a look.
After 2 years, the top world decision body on environment for the 6th time has convened, this time in the city under the sun, Nairobi, Kenya. 70 ministers and 3,000 delegates from the United Nations member states in attendance. At the 5th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly in 2022, UNEA 5, 175 member states resolved to end plastic pollution, voting to establish a committee to develop a legally binding global treaty on plastic pollution. According to UNEP, between 2021 and 2040, the cumulative cost of managing plastic waste is estimated to be $670 billion, equivalent to 97.485 trillion Kenyan shillings.
Plastic fills our waterways, plastic goes into our oceans, we have plastic in our bodies. This impacts our health. So therefore, we need to find the solutions. And the solutions are entirely doable.
Among the UNEP triple planetary crisis mitigation efforts is the reduction in plastic production for the sake of health, the climate and the planet, where currently in Africa the demand is wanting, despite figures indicating only 4% of plastic is recycled on the continent. In Kenya, the demand and recycling of polythene are relatively balanced. 6 years ago, the government banned the importation, manufacture and use of plastic bags, imposing a fine of up to 50 million Kenya shillings. Although the National Environmental Management Agency, NEMA, recorded a decline in commercial use of plastic bags, the usage is still prevalent, posing not only environmental, but climate and also health risks.
I welcome the progress being made in the ongoing negotiations for a legally binding global agreement aimed at ending plastic pollution.
In Karashi, Lari constituency, Kiambu County, Marimaini, an informal settlement continues to sprawl. The majority of the dwellings are constructed using polythene papers, which serves as a roof. Under this welcoming weather, it is a good day for filming, at least according to Marimaini residents. Navigating through the muddy and flooded pathways proved to be quite a task. Previously known as Gishagi Kiamaratadi, a Kikuyu name which can be loosely translated to a village made of polythene houses. Marimaine is one of the 3 slums in Kiambu County, about 50 kilometers from Nairobi, truly living up to its former name, with the majority of the shelters built using polythene paper. David Karanja, a father of 3, has called this slum home for a decade now. Karanja is a mechanic mending motorbikes, with earning he describes as meager but enough to provide a meal a day.
Paka nikajifunza hiyo kazi yangu polepole, nikaijua, mimi hakuna mtu alinifunza. Sasa nikajua, ndio nikaanza kutafutia watoto wangu hapo. Inside Karanja's 2-roomed shelter, spots of sun rays penetrate through the roof. The roof is constructed using polythene papers oblivious. He exposes himself and his family despite the affordability of the structure on his income. Sasa hapo unaona, hiyo ni miti kwanza nimepigilia hivi. Nikachukua fiti nikapima hivi. Unaona? Nikachukua hiyo karatasi nikawekelea juu. Nikachukulia maganda, karusha juu ya upepo. Hiyo karatasi kutoka hapo mpaka huko chini ni 2,000. Mabati saa hii ukienda kwa duka moja ni 1,000. Si ndio? Na hiyo pesa hakuna na kazi hakuna.
If hope was a person, it will be the people living in this informal settlement. Despite the myriad of challenges they are facing, they live a day at a time, hopeful of a better tomorrow. A few yards away, 67-year-old Jane Mbadha enjoys a newly constructed house with an iron sheet roof. Mbadha is among the fortunate few out of the 341 households in the informal settlement to own a house with a durable roof. The mother of 6 says that previously she lived in a mud house with a weak polythene roof which caved in due to heavy rains. But with the help of self-empowerment group, which she is a member, her house was renovated.
Hiyo nyumba ndio nipata hii msaada, ilipujika kutoka juu, ile miti ikaanguka. Kuanguka karatasi ikatumbukia ndani. Sasa maji ilikuwa inanyeza mpaka mimi nakosa pahali pa kupikia chakula. Tunakosa pahali pa kukaa na watoto yangu. Tulikuwa tunalala hata bila kukula.
However, out of the more than 750 residents in this slum, many are not as fortunate as Jane, leaving them exposed to several risks. From Mzee Jacob Kahira, who moved to this slum in the year 2007 after the post-election violence, his worry now is the possibility of heavy rains damaging his house, which over the years he has slowly improved from mud walls to timber and polythene.
Ingekuwa mimi niko na uwezo wowote, hii nyumba ingekuwa na mabati, kwa sababu hakuna yeyote ambaye anaweza kupenda kuishi kwa karatasi kama hii. A majority of residents here are 2007 post-election violence victims doing odd jobs in farms around the area, with low income being the biggest challenge in improving their living conditions.
Sasa ni kukosa la kufanya. Hata mkikuja pande ile hapa juu hivi, umeona uchafu mwingi, lakini juu una kitu kingine ya kufanya, utafanya nini? Unajifinyiria tu.
Sina mbele na sina nyuma na sina namna. Na ndio mimi nakwambia, ndio mimi nakaa hapa pale ambao kwa ajia ndipo nje yangu, sababu hakuna chochote na hakuna mpango yoyote ambao mimi niko naye.
Unknown to these slum dwellers of Marimaine, they risk exposing themselves not only to environmental impact but also health complications such as cancer, respiratory and skin conditions.
We have forgotten or ignored that when we harm our environment, we harm ourselves.
At UNEA 6, delegates extensively should keep alive the goal to curb plastic use and pollution, with a target of a must cut off plastic production by 75% by the year 2040. Mwege William, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, William Moige, for that wonderful report. Gishagi Kia Maratadi. Interesting. I hope somebody changes the name of that village for the better. Now, domestic versus external loans meant to finance the national budget will be restructured to a 23-27 ratio. And this, of course, is to reduce the external borrowing rates, which burdens the country with expensive dollar-denominated loans that force supplementary budget adjustments in the long run. Budget and Appropriation Committee Chair Ndindi Nyoro says that already the government has slashed the budget approximates for the next fiscal year by 100 billion shillings as it works on stabilizing the shilling for more favorable repayment terms with international financiers. However, what's the assurance that the continued volatility of the currency currently will be tamed. Does the government have a better plan than waiting for remittance inflow? Embakkasi tells us more.
A hefty budget of 4.134 trillion shillings. The government arms itself with quote-unquote fiscal consolidation plans for what it calls a manageable and modest budget. But in perspective, the budget estimates have grown from last year's 3.3 trillion, the budget deficit forecast for the financial year standing at 5.5% of GDP from last year's hiked 5.3%.
That is quite modest, and it's quite manageable, and especially if you look at our peers, both in the emerging economies and in the developing economies and all the economies in the southern part. And therefore, this is very commendable that we are continuing to lessen our appetite for debt budgeting, and eventually, I am sure at some point, we will be able to read a balanced budget where we rely squarely on our resources.
But what does this truly mean for the Kenyan taxpayer? For one, this adds pressure to the tax collector, who has to raise additional funds to cover 2.9 trillion shillings of the national budget, the same revenue authority that has recently fallen short for this cycle.
At the end of it, when you compare what is being projected and probably what was realized or achieved in the previous financial year, we find huge gaps. And that is one of the reasons for pending bills.
To cover the deficit of about 700 billion shillings, this would also mean additional borrowing locally and internationally, adding to the already ballooning debt owed by the country.
But we are trying to moderate because we are working against a deficit that is we must look and work against.
However, the committee assigned to appropriate and preside over the budget-making process say there are austerity measures in place to tame the debt owed, all the while widening the revenue collection net. And as for the plans to stabilize the Kenyan shilling through foreign remittance,
the current shilling is around 1.146 or thereabout. In my estimation, the shilling may gain further.
now the budget approximation stands at around